All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Psychedelics today. Really excited to have Brad Adams here of LAMPS, the Los Angeles Medicinal Plant Society. Brad, welcome. I don't think you've been on the show yet, so excited to have
No,
you here.
first time. It's an honor. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
just for reference, we changed the name a while back as Psychedelic Society, not Plant Society.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah, and part of the reason for that was because if people were looking for psychedelic-related Facebook groups, they would miss us. So that's part of the reason to change it. Plus, not all psychedelics are plants, so
Yeah.
it's kind of. I disappeared or stuff. I guess I don't know if it disappeared you, but it's okay.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of lag, but it looks like you're back.
Okay.
The joys of technology and doing all this stuff. So
Yeah, it's a yin and yang of technology.
yeah, exactly. So Brad, could you introduce yourself to the folks that are listening? And yeah, who are you? What are you up to?
Yeah, so my name's Brad Adams. I have a Ph.D. in counseling psychology, large background in research, everything from AIDS research, and then cancer or Alzheimer's gerontology research, and lastly, mostly cancer research. So I always liked working for something that was a worthy cause, and I thought each of those were, worthy causes. And then after I got my PhD, unlike a lot of my colleagues, I didn't jump in and get a psychology-related job like counseling or whatever, but stayed kind of with research, and because I love research and I want to do more of it because I think it's one of my strengths. And then around 2011, when I was working in cancer research, I came across some research findings out of Harvard UCLA where they were working with stage 4 cancer patients who had severe death anxiety, and they were using psilocybin. It was a pilot study, so they only had about 12 subjects, and I was really impressed with it. I mean, as you probably know, that they got amazing results from that, especially the clients who had intense mystical experience. Their fear of death diminished tremendously, or even went away in some cases. They just become more comfortable with their demise, but not as fearful in terms of what's going to happen afterwards. So I contacted the PI of that, and we teamed up with Dennis McKenna and did a pilot study in Peru for ayahuasca, and got amazing results. We can dig into that if you want, but I presented those results at 2017 Psychedelic Science Conference. So if you just go on YouTube and you put my name and psychedelics in there, it should pop up.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was. And speaking about death, it was not significant. I mean, maybe with a bigger sample pool, it would have reached significance. But we used Viktor Frankl's. I forget the name of the instrument, but it's based on Viktor Frankl's work, existential stuff. And there are 6 factors, and the only one that really showed any change was the death acceptance or diminishment of fear of death, which I thought was fascinating. I mean, how many things do you know that do that, in your death experience, or a spontaneous awakening or something? But so that's intriguing. I don't know if anyone's, I'd like to follow up on that, to maybe with a larger pool or do some survey research or something, because
yeah,
I thought that was really cool. And so then after that, I was asked to speak at the Aware Project, which is the only game in town in LA for a long time. So the topic was mushrooms are medicine. And I didn't know a lot about mushrooms at that point, but I boned up on it and just fell in love with that research. I had no idea that was going on. All of the great stuff with Roland Griffiths. Anything as not mundane, but as simple as psilocybin for smoking cessation, and just how that worked better than anything else. It's like, and the interesting thing was it was most, I don't know if it's only or most prevalent in people that had mystical experiences, as opposed to those who didn't. They took the same amount and they don't have it. But the number of people who quit smoking and the recidivism rate was just very profound. You can imagine that, similar to alcohol cessation, depression, and a lot of other things. So I was really impressed with psilocybin, and still am. Just amazing being done with that. And just to carry that forward, that pilot study at UCLA was swallowed up with, I think Johns Hopkins was next, and they had a bigger thing and very similar results, a lot more data points. Amazing. I think there's some documentaries out there about it. And then finally NYU, where they had the biggest study, and again, just amazing results. So, and you just started developing a profound appreciation of these medicines, and just how the potential for helping people, with trauma, with on the negative side, dealing with trauma, depression, anxiety, and so forth, and the positive side, just spiritual awakening. People realizing that maybe they're not their ego, and be kind of like a doorway to further spiritual exploration. And so after that talk I did with Mushrooms Are Medicine, I thought I would like to start a group, maybe just focusing on research. So I brought a sign-up sheet at that talk, and then started having monthly meetings at UCLA. I was lucky to get a room in the building I worked at. And that slowly morphed from just the sciencey aspect to just getting guest speakers. And that seemed to be a lot more interesting and popular. So we had Dennis McKenna pipe in. We had a lot of really prominent people. And it was so much fun and so amazing just to see all the work being done with all these medicines, at Ibogaine and, everything. And it started out humble. I think we had maybe 10, 12 people show up the first time. It just started growing slowly over time. And so then one day I was thinking, why isn't anyone doing a psychedelic conference in LA? It's like a major hub of the planet, let alone the country. So it's like, well, why don't we do it? And then there were some starts and fits and crashes, but I didn't give up on it. I'm glad I didn't. It finally took hold, and because we were originally going to do it at USC, and that kind of crumbled in castles made of sand. So I thought, well, shit, let's just do it at UCLA, and which is what we did in 2018. Were you at that one, Kyle?
I have not been able to make to any of them, and they always look like really wonderful events. But sometimes it's always hard to get out to the West Coast. I think when you guys were starting out, I was primarily on the East Coast. Might be a little bit easier now that I'm in the center of the country here in Colorado. But
yeah, I think you said you wouldn't be able to make it though on November 1st, right?
Yeah, I just can't swing hanging out there. I'm going to be there the weekend beforehand. I'm going to be in LA next weekend for a film screening. Yeah. But yeah, I won't be able to join for this one on. You said November 1st is the weekend?
Yeah, November 1st, Saturday. Well, maybe I'll see you at that film festival because
yeah.
Are you going to the first one?
No, I think I'm just going to the Saturday and Sunday, possibly mostly the Sunday one. I'll probably be there because we're screening this documentary Life and Breath about holotropic breath work and dream shadow. Yeah.
Well, as you know, my time is really tight, but I may make a go there. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. I'd be curious to kind of dig in, you're talking about like continuing to show up for the events when maybe people weren't showing up, and just like building community. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there that are curious in building community. And I'm sure you have a lot of great advice for those that are like looking to build community, host events. So like, what were some of those like early struggles for you, and what kept you showing up when you're like, should I continue to keep doing this?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. Yeah, and I've met people, different, through Facebook and other means. Like I inspired this guy to start something in Kentucky, so he started Kentucky Psychedelic Society, and there's places that, I think so spoiled, like in Colorado and California, because there's no shortage of people interested in this sort of thing. It's kind of more out in the open, less stigmatized. But some places, maybe in the Bible Belt, it might be a lot more stigma attached to it. Like people don't know the positive aspects of it. They harken back to the 60s and images of people jumping off buildings on LSD, So, yeah, but in terms of starting to build community, I had Ashley Booth for the Aware Project kind of as a first role model. She did a great job. In fact, at the end of every event, she would say, we're building community.
Mm.
And she was, the Aware Project, grew quite nicely. So that was kind of like a North Star a little bit, credit to her. In terms of starting Lamps, well, I mean, the monthly meetings were great because they were always, it's always had people show up no matter what, and it grew over time. So I was really kind of like my dopamine thing to keep going.
And were those monthly meetings online or were they in person?
No, they're in person.
Cool.
Yeah. It was on. I worked on the third floor of this building. Like on the first floor, very nice doctor's office. I said, can we use this room for, and they knew what we were doing and they were cool with it. And so, yeah, it was beautiful. It was, having monthly meetings there, just pretty big room with the whiteboards. Somebody to have a projector and for slideshows.
Yeah.
But the fits and starts, I guess, what you're talking about is mainly, especially with the first conference, because like I mentioned, it was going to be at USC at first, and so I partnered up with a psychiatrist there, and we were excited. Went to I got my Ph.D. at USC, so and my dad taught there many years ago in psychology, so it kind of felt good to do something there. And they had Bovard Auditorium was huge, so. But then I guess the psychiatry department there got nervous or something, and they said, they forbid him, the psychiatrist, to have anything to do with it. And so he goes, you can still have it here if you want, but you're gonna have to do everything. And it's like, I thought about it. I thought, I can take it over, but then it's like, no, I just didn't. I wasn't feeling it anymore. So I thought, let's do it at UCLA. And that had its own fits and starts because I was partnering up. We were going to have this be like a student thing because then we'd have free access, I think, to the venue. So I was trying to give it to them and maybe be support behind it. So reached out to the SSDP on campus. The first guy was all, great, blah, blah, blah. And then he ghosted me for whatever reason. I don't know. And he was a senior. He was probably just looking to get out and thought this is a cool thing to do, but he ghosted me. And so then I reached out to someone else, and he was a little bit better, but still hard to deal with. He wouldn't get back to me. And it was like, so at the end, I just told the people at UCLA, I said, look, because they kind of see through it anyway. They see me doing most of the stuff, and SSDP person just dangling along, kind of. I said, fuck it, I'll take the reins, and I know we'll get charged for it. And sure enough, it was enormous charges, but it was worth it. So we got it done. And that was such a peak experience in my life and other people's who helped orchestrate this whole thing. It was just like magic, bumps and storms and crashes, of course, but, perseverance through that storm. It was just magic to see, have the doors open. People are coming in, people are getting tickets, people are sitting down, Dennis McKenna's here, all these, James Fadiman pipe in, and Gabor Mate was the keynote, piping in through Skype. But it was glorious. It was just not a single hiccup, I don't think, during that day. And like I tell many people, I could have died that day and not have any regrets, because it was like, this is beautiful. This is, the first psychedelic conference in LA since the 60s. And even back in the 60s, I don't think they had anything quite like this.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was, and I was just amazed no one else was doing it.
I mean, Aware Project was having like some smaller little events, but not like a big conference type of thing.
Yeah. So a lot of small things, but because back in that time, I had been to the MAPS or psychedelic science conferences and loved them. I mean, the first one I went to in 2013, I was just blown away. Walk in is like, first thing I see, the Mythhopper is talking about using MDMA for the PTSD, and you see the charts, and they can work better than anything conventional medicine or therapy. And I said, "Geez, this is my tribe, man. I'm meant to be here doing stuff, Because before then, like a lot of kids growing up, just experimented with friends. Someone got a hold of some acid, and it was more recreational. Maybe have an accidental mystical experience or something, but it wasn't intentional. It was more like a fun thing to do, and oftentimes not fun. depending on the trip. And so, yeah, and through this process, say building community, when we did the conference, I thought that was, a big influx. I mean, like we had 1,100 people show up over the 2 days. And so, yeah, in building Lamps community online, I'm an old fart, so I still like Facebook. And that was kind of my...
Yeah, you're pretty active on there. You have a pretty robust group there.
Yeah, I love it. It's like I've only tweeted once, and that was just to get a hold of Joe Rogan. It didn't work. And then I have no presence at all on TikTok. So I hear that's the new thing. So, but I like Facebook. I kept it a private group because I didn't want just anyone. I see what happens to groups that just let people flood in. People are posting about selling drugs and stuff, and you have to delete, or just kick them out. So I do my best to try to screen people, slow, painstaking. That's what, we're up to, I think, 3.2 thousand. So we could easily be way over that, just let people in. But I just got so sick of kicking people out.
Well, that's important, especially on the platforms, right? And like you're trying to create community, and that moderation is important because it could potentially put your Facebook groups at risk. I mean, we've had our Facebook group, I think, like suspended for a bit for whatever posts, probably some sort of drug education, but Meta is a crazy platform nowadays.
They shut down Lamps once, and I kind of panicked, but I disputed it, and they brought it back. But every time someone wants to post him, I have to approve it, and it has this warning. You have several warning violations. So I tried to look into it, and some of them were deleted. I couldn't even look at it. But I guess it's something about encouraging drug use or telling take drug, kids. It's good, which I never do. I always try to educate, and it's just. But it is concerning because I know you've gone through the same thing with different platforms, and it's. I was just at the Awakenings 2025 conference, and there's somebody talking about social media platforms, marketing stuff, and there's certain words that are picked up with the algorithms, and so I don't want to get tricky and I use different code words or something, but some people are doing that, I guess, just not to get. It's a psychedelics put a $ for the S or something. I don't know if that works even. But yeah. So yeah, I love building community. I love, I pretty mild-mannered guy for the most part. But I feel like I'm Zeus in that realm. Like if someone causes problems there, doesn't follow the rules, I've kicked out close friends before, brought them back in if they're, but just I don't stand for bullying at all. Like dialogue and disagreement are great, but people start name calling or stuff like that. I have no tolerance for that. I used to have more back years ago, but now it's just like, maybe give them a warning if they keep doing it, they're out. So I want to keep it, the whole mission of Lamps, I think it's even the mission statement, is to create safe spaces for these dialogues to happen. So don't want people to feel like they're not safe in there. They could say something that I totally disagree with. That's fine. It's like, let's talk about it. But I'm not going to call names.
Yeah. So for those that are interested in building some community, what are some tips that folks could do? Because I'm sure it's a big undertaking, either just trying to find spaces, knowing how to put on some events, or as you're saying, all the energy that goes into managing a Facebook group. Yeah, what are some big lessons? Because I think people are really searching for community, as you're saying, those out in maybe Kentucky or, states where there's not a lot of stuff happening. They're probably craving connection, but maybe also afraid to take that step to foster community.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And even places where we'll keep using Kentucky. We say Kentucky. Nothing wrong with Kentucky. I love Kentucky. But people would be surprised about just how many people are interested in this, and there's just no spaces to talk openly. It's not exactly water cooler talk if you work in a conservative place, or if you don't see anything advertised, it's really hard to have conversation. Who can you talk to, especially if you have an experience that you want to share or get reflections from? It's hard to find people. So there's a lot of ways you can build community and start a psychedelic group, and one of them was just, I started a Facebook group, Kentucky Psychedelic Society or Mississippi, Kentucky Psychedelic Society, and just get people, see how many people show up, and start small like I did. You could just even find a place that will let you, even a restaurant, like or something that you can meet periodically, and it doesn't even have to be you don't have to be like a Dennis McKenna speaker right away or something like that. You could just come and just have conversations about it, and then start having themes to it. Like this time we're going to talk about the importance of preparation or integration or stuff like that. It's just start small, and then it's always fun to do stuff like picnics, drum circles. Just kind of be creative with what might be fun. With Lamps, I think we're going to try to do more in-person stuff. After COVID, it's like everything got kibosh and it's all like Zoom stuff. And but even Zoom, I mean, start with Zoom. You could do Zoom too, or you could do like a hybrid thing where people can watch and participate as well. But just start. It's like do you ever read Psycho-Cybernetics?
I don't think so. Who wrote that book?
Maxwell Maltz. He's a plastic surgeon of all things, but he wrote this awesome book, and I won't get into the details, but I just remember the analogy of guided missile. Guided missile doesn't have a perfect trajectory to hit its target. It gets going, and then it corrects its mistakes. So it gets off and corrects it. So just think of it that way. Like you're not going to have a perfect thing going on, but you just do course corrections, and as long as you're moving forward, things more often than not will work out in terms of building these communities.
I think that's been like one of our things too over the years, like the amount of times like Joe and I have had to course correct, right? It's like making these like small little pivots here and there, like seeing what's working, seeing what's not working. But yeah, I think the scariest thing is just taking that step forward and putting yourself out there. And I think that's like what holds a lot of people back. But yeah, it's like, how do we just find that courage to keep showing up? Like, and even if nobody shows up, right? Like, I liked what you said about like, after the first conference, maybe you could have died and felt complete, right? And it's like, is this kind of part of your life purpose of like showing up and creating community, and like how fulfilling that is, even though maybe not a lot of people showed up at first, but it's having an impact on your life in such a profound way. And is that actually worth it to keep putting your foot forward?
Hell yeah. Yeah. Well, in my case, I left a semi-lucrative job at UCLA after being there for 18 years. And well, it was a dual thing. I was just like, felt like I was dying every day I went to work. So that was part of it. Won't lie. That was more of the stick part, but the carrot part was like, I wouldn't devote full time just to this, because I do feel like this is my mission, and I love it. I wouldn't trade my life for anyone in the world, just in the process of this conference. Like I've met so many fascinating people doing awesome work, and I mean, that alone, it's just priceless. It just enriches me so much. So I think Lamps is going to be my path moving forward. And just kind of throw a weird bone in there. On Monday, I had my astrology chart read by someone who's going to be at the conference. One of the best readings I ever had, and it just kind of reinforced that I am on the right path, and this is what I should be doing. And thankfully, I love doing it. And yeah, I have big plans for Lamps and past this conference.
That's cool.
A lot of things on my bucket list before I croak.
Yeah. I'm curious, and I know maybe the sharing a little bit of the astrology chart is personal, but what aspects like kind of point you in that direction from the chart, if you remember?
I could show it to you if I share the screen, but anyway, I told this guy, I said, I'm the most Aquarius person you'll ever meet, because I've had other people. First time I had it read, this psychic person read it at this psychology fair we had at Cal State Long Beach. And she looked at it. She goes, I just double take. She goes, wow. I guess it's very unusual, because when you look at my chart, I mean, sure enough, like my sun, Mars, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and some other thing are all Aquarius.
Oh wow,
And
you have a stellium and with
what was
all
that?
those planets. You have a stellium with all those planets. They're
Oh,
all
is that what
like
it's
in
called? Stellium?
yeah, it's in like one house. Yeah.
Lopsided, yeah. Um, so I asked this guy, well, was that bad? Is that because I was my one of my ex-girlfriends was into astrology, and she looked at it, saying double take, and she goes, wow, do you ever just float away? You're so much air. I go, yeah, often. I gotta work to keep myself grounded sometimes. She goes, that your moon in Aries is probably your saving grace, because if that was Aquarius, you definitely just float away. But I mean, that's fire too. There's no earth or water in there, so I'm not sure what that means. But yeah, it
That's
was a
fun.
fantastic reading, and yeah, again, just very reassuring that
Yeah.
I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
So you have your chart read, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Lots of times have like 4 planets in Leo, so I have like one of those things where it's all clumped together, all in the 12th house, which is kind of like that, the taboos, shadow, stuff like that. So maybe it makes sense why I'm into all this stuff.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what this guy told me, and another great astrologer told me this as well. It's like part of my task of being here is to be more like a Leo,
Mm.
who's on the opposite side. And
Opposite. Yeah.
yeah, and Leos are more flamboyant. They're, extravagant, or I forget all the stuff, but it just didn't feel like me. It's like I got that shirt yesterday. I don't know if you've seen most of the shirts I wear, but they're like plain, monk-like, uninteresting, and so a couple of friends went out and helped me pick some stuff
Nice.
out. So,
Nice.
I had a girlfriend a while back who, for my birthday, she gave me this colorful shirt, and it was like, I said, I'm never going to wear that. Part of the reason I'm colorblind, so black was always safe. Black and white, or just patterns are safe, because I used to have sisters, telling me, oh, no, don't wear those together, and now that I don't have a girlfriend or a woman to help me out, you have to have really friends to help me pimp out my wardrobe, I guess.
That's funny you say that because, I mean, me being a Leo, maybe I think I'm a little bit more of a quiet, introverted one. But in high school, I'd only wear navy blue shirts to the point where, like, one of my teachers called me out. She's like, "Will you wear a different color?" And I felt so comfortable with like the navy blue, and to the point where like everybody was like signing my yearbook, like, "Oh, you look so good in navy blue." It was like kind of making jokes, and so that was like the first year. I think it was like maybe like my junior year. I started like branching out, maybe bought like a red or green shirt. That's
Did
funny.
you ever meet John Holmdel?
I don't think so. No.
He has passed away recently, tragically, but he would always wear like a blue, like a light blue, powder blue. I don't know how to describe a shirt. So one day I just confronted. I go, why do you always wear that same color shirt? He said it's to something about to hold his energy in or something.
Mm.
So maybe unconsciously we're trying to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, less decision making, right? It's like something comfortable. You're just like, okay, and then sometimes it also just starts to become part of your personality, maybe.
Yeah, your brand.
Yeah, exactly.
I just had this
Um,
conversation yesterday about like some people always wear the same shirt, like that, wear a clean one, but the same shirt,
yeah,
because it's you don't have to make the decision. It's there, and I forget the person was ADHD, but it said it really helps with that because you don't have to get distracted by which shirt, and have the same meals, same routine, and
yeah,
there's something to that having a structure can be very liberating in a weird way. Like Tibetan monks, they're very strict, rigid structure, and they're working toward liberation. So I have respect for
yeah,
that.
yeah. So yeah, let's chat a little bit about the conference. So the Lamps conference is coming up on November 1st. It looks like you have a really great lineup. For those in the LA area, California, anybody willing to travel, yeah, can you share a little bit about what you got cooking over there?
Yeah, and you say that. I have a friend flying down from Portland just to do tarot readings. So the people are coming from distances as well, which is I'm happy about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's November 1st. Doors open at 8 a.m. and they close at 2 a.m. So we're going all the way to the next day at 2 a.m. And it's structured in so during the day between 8 or 9 o'clock is when everything starts really. Between 9 and 6:45. Well, first of all, going back to it's at Above the Block in West LA. So people can go to abovetheblockla.com and just check it out. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous venue. They usually have weddings, bar mitzvahs, very formal stuff there. It's big, huge, beautiful ballrooms, crystal chandeliers and stuff. So this will be the first psychedelic conference, and so it'll be interesting. So one of the ballrooms, we're going to have most of we have 3 panels. One is on cannabis. And that's going to be a kick-ass panel because we have 4 incredible experts on that, each coming from a slightly different angle. And then we have one on integration, preparation and integration. Those call them the missing pillars of the whole thing, because people focus on the journey itself without enough attention, or a lot of times without enough attention on the preparation and integration part, especially integration. Because so many people get a mystical experience or have a hellish experience and then just go on with their life as if nothing happened, or that mystical glow fades and they just go back into their daily samsara life. And then the last one is on sound, music, and psychedelics, and that one's. We have David Starfire is going to be one of the DJs in the evening.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah, he's going to be on it. And Matt Baldwin, who wrote the Psychedelic DJ, is on it.
Matt Xavier.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
That's all good.
That's it. And this guy wrote the Magic Harp. Real quick, interesting story about him. He, I think it was on ayahuasca. Grandmother told him, you need to play the harp, or you're going to play the harp. And he said, can it be guitar or something? Something a little more cool. And he goes, no, you're going to play the harp. And so I think he kind of forgot about it, but then he was magically gifted a harp out of nowhere, unexpectedly. So I thought, okay, universe, I guess I'll start playing the harp. And it became very instrumental in his healing journey. And he wrote some best-selling books about it. So long story short, he's going to be playing his harp there and he's also going to be on the panel. And I think we have one more person on that panel. We lost two people that were key on there, but I haven't sealed that in, so I won't talk about that. But so there's 3 really kick-ass panels for the educational part. But we didn't want it to be like going to a place where there's talking heads and you just fill your heads with knowledge. We wanted it to be something for everyone. So there's a large experiential component to it. So we have on the second floor, we have a lounge space, big, nice, beautiful lounge space. And we call it the Healing Lounge. And so in that place, we have a lot of healers. We have people doing Reiki, acupuncture, Qigong, massage. We have people doing, there's a Ganja yoga experience that's going to be there. A Ganja meditation by Sky Weaver. We have someone doing a performance artist dance for the Divine Feminine. It's kind of like a not planned out thing. It's a beautiful thing. I saw one of her reels on her website. So that's going to be amazing. We have, we'll have people doing tarot readings. I have one person doing like a Jungian tarot readings, which sounds intriguing. This astrology, that guy who did my chart will be there doing astrology readings. Have we just added someone who's going to do human design and Enneagram. A massage therapists. A lot of other fun things. So that's part of the experiential part. And we have the biggest ballroom on the 3rd floor is just going to be mainly vendors. Because I don't know about you, but that's one of my favorite things. Even though like psychedelic science, I think I spent more time hanging out in the vendor section than going.
I always do. Yeah. Whenever I'm at those places. Yeah. I mean, that's where like a lot of the networking happens, right?
Yeah.
Like people are just like a little bit more not in like presentation mode. They're just wanting to learn about each other. And yeah, that's what I usually do. Hang out in those vendor sections. Just
that's what I did. It's fun. It's great. And it's like people are doing some amazing things. And in fact, I was on a panel, so I had a speaking engagement, but the only speaking thing I went to was my own. I mean, there's all these great things. And it's like, but somehow or another, I just never got to a talk, which I have no regrets about, because I was, every time I go to one of those things, it's just magic. It's so much fun, and like you, I'm sure you just bump into people that and make new friends, and it's so much, it's fantastic. And then of course the nightlife. What night things did you go to?
I did not do any this year, honestly. I was
Really?
in I was in bed by 10 or 10:30 back at my hotel at Psychedelic Science. Yeah, I was trying to be good. I signed up for a bike race on July 4th, and since I don't have a spleen, I'm a little immunocompromised, and like I always get sick at these events. And I think
Oh,
I've learned after always going to these big industry conferences and doing the nightlife, it just run my body down. So I didn't want to get sick before that bike race.
oh yeah,
So
that makes sense.
so I was trying to adult and like be responsible and get sleep and all that
Oh,
stuff,
so that
which
means I'm a
it was a
kid
smart
or going
decision.
from
But I
big.
did have a lot of FOMO. I did have a lot of FOMO. I bummed I missed out on like the Meow Wolf and like,
Oh, that's
there's so
fantastic.
many cool things happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, we saw a snow raven and Louis Schwarzkopf afterwards. He was in the dome. And oh my God, I fell in love with Snow Raven. In fact, I tried to reach out to her before to get her on some stuff. But that was the first time seeing her live perform and then meeting her and talking with her. Have you ever met her or seen her perform?
No.
Put that
I've seen her
bucket.
perform online, not in person though.
Yeah, it was just amazing, delightful, and wonderful. Um, I was going to try to get her to November 1st, but the price was a little um, above my range,
Mm.
including, I don't know if she lives in Siberia or what, but, on airfare and a large number of people. So it just didn't work out. So that's where we got David Starfire, and he's really stoked about coming. So I'm stoked of having him. I mean, I actually saw him at Meow Wolf. I didn't know who he was. I was just walking by. You've been to Meow Wolf before, right? So
I have, yeah, it's pretty
yeah,
wild.
it's insanely wild. So I think he was standing on some walkway, and so I was walking this way and see him from below. And have you ever seen him perform?
I haven't. Yeah.
Okay. So he had, has his gorgeous fire twirlers on each side, and he's damn good. I haven't been to mini rave or any raves actually. That was probably the first thing you call a semi rave. So, but he just blew my socks off. So I actually, filmed part of it. I had no idea who he was. So later I was asking someone who does a lot of conferences, like, who should I get that's, not Snow Raven expensive? And so she recommended David Starfire. So I reached out to him. And through our conversation, I realized that he was the guy I was filming. I go, oh my God, I saw you. You're fantastic. So, yeah, I'm not sure how I got on that tangent. What was it? Talking about the conference. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing the weave. Okay. So, yeah. So in that other room, I think I explained everything. Oh, also it's Dia de los Muertos on the 1st. And so we're going to have an altar for that. And we had some friends from Mexico set that up. So it's not like a gringo type thing, and, cultural appropriation. Don't want to get accused of that. So, and we also have the guy who did my astrology reading is also a medium. And so he's going to channel relatives for people. So that should be interesting. I hope that works out good. So that's the Healing Lounge. And then we have something that's also different. Do you know Tresham Greg? He makes all these
Yeah.
amazing costumes. It's like he was in the back of the vendors this time with the Bronner group, but he goes to Burning Man a lot. So he makes these beautiful, elaborate masks. And so he's going to do something called an improv theater, Dancing with Dragons. So we're going to get people to dress in dragon costumes representing different aspects or archetypes, and then have conversations and dancing. So it's going to be semi-guided, semi-improv. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. But I'm really excited about that because it's, unique concept and something different, you know, than the talking heads like I'm talking about. So then after that, I think, or right before that, David Starfire is going to do a sound bath, and I watched or listened to one of his sound baths with Ram Dass. So that's what he's going to do. He's really close to the Ram Dass Foundation, and so, you know, they have his voice in the background, you know, saying stuff while he's doing this beautiful sound bath. And then I think there's dinner, and then from 6:45 to 2 a.m. is just, we have 7 DJs in a row to just erupt into dance party. And this place is in a non-residential area, so we can be as loud as we want, not bother any residents, which would be fun.
It's important, yeah.
Yeah. I don't want the cops called and turn down the music. So I'm sure I probably missed some stuff, but there's a food court. We have people providing food, and it's just gonna be a lot of fun. Again, something for everyone. You know, we sell tickets separately for people who just want to come to the dance party. You know?
Cool. And people can just find that at lamps.org, and I have it kind of going on here. And I think we have a discount code, just Psychedelics Today.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And it's lamps.org, and just remember it's 2 S's, lampss.org. And that has, schedule, speakers that we have. And I'm just really pleased with the speakers and the healers that we have coming. Just really
it looks like a really great lineup.
Yeah, I'm so happy with that. I didn't name names, but the cannabis panel is, we met just, it was supposed to be a half hour just to kind of say, well, how's this going to go? And it's going to be like crosstalk allowed. And we were on there for 2 hours. You could just feel the excitement. And all of us just got super excited about it, because there's a lot of cool things about cannabis people don't know. So it's not just
like what?
With this one guy, in fact, I'll put the reel out pretty soon, but Len May, he looks at genetics and a lot of genetic testing to see and kind of tailor what a person takes and how they take it to get the maximum benefit and things to avoid. So that's a fascinating breakthrough. I think just in medicine in general, I think that's kind of a wave of the future. Getting some genetic markers and seeing, like, because some people don't respond to this medication, but maybe that's not the right one for them because they have a certain genetic or epigenetic makeup. So he's coming from that angle. We have Del Potter, who's done a lot of research on it. In fact, he wrote a 42-page review on just, like, cannabis for, cancer, cannabis for Parkinson's, cannabis for this. And I still haven't read it. I'm a little busy these days, but take a look at that, because I remember when I first heard about. I met someone actually who had stage 4 cancer, and he credits a lot of his healing to Rick Simpson oil.
Right. That's fascinating.
Yeah, let alone like the dietary change.
Yeah.
And
I can't imagine taking that much oil, though. I know you have to, like, titrate up, but my God, some of those regimens are pretty heavy.
Yeah, and I wanted to get an update on that, because I remember hearing about this long ago. Like, Rick Simpson oil, but I haven't heard anything since. And research in cannabis is really interesting in itself, because we had Sue Sicily at our first conference.
Oh, awesome!
She told me all the hell that she had to go through just to get this done. She had to use the government-approved marijuana, which is bonk.
Like Mississippi, that was crap. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crap. So it kind of hedges the bet of not finding anything, first of all, and then just all the, the obstacles that she had to go through, and even to this day, this is like hard to get some certain research.
Isn't it wild that, like, cannabis research seems a lot harder, even though, like, half a country has some sort of, like, legal reform, whether it's, like, recreational or medical, but psychedelic research seems easier. It's totally bizarre.
It just makes no sense. Yeah. And we have another woman coming on, Joanna, and she's a cannabis researcher, so she's brings a lot of that into this. Just the good stuff and the obstacles. It's just such a mixed bag. The barriers to getting funding, the barriers to just even doing the research is quite challenging. I think I've covered most of that. Yeah, so I think you also wanted to talk about the last two online things we did.
Yeah, we could dig into some of that stuff. Yeah, so you shared some videos beforehand to watch, and one was about the DMT-X updates with
Yeah.
Andrew Gallimore, Sky Weaver, and Daniel McQueen, and the other was about kind of IFS exiles and unattached burdens, right, from Robert Falconer, and forget the other guy's name.
Paul Levy, yeah, Witiko.
Yeah.
So the title of that was, this is like a space holder joke thing. I was going to change it later because I thought it was too weird. But it's like, what the fuck is happening and what can we do about it?
Yeah.
But I brought that up to Paul and Bob. I said, we can change this. This is just a space holder kind of guide it and go, no, we like this. So we stuck with it. And because, I just wanted to get I tried to get Chris Bache on there as well, but he was not available.
For the DMT-X one or the...
No, to the what the fuck is happening? Because did
What's
you read?
happening? Yeah.
Did you read his book?
Years ago, Diamond Luminosity.
Yeah. That's one of my top 2 favorite books in psychedelics. I had it on tape, or books on my Audible. I think I've listened to it 3 times. It's so rich and it's so ultimately optimistic. And for those of you who don't know the book, he went through 76, I believe, high-dose LSD sessions over a 20-year period, took copious notes. Thank God, because it's the most fascinating book. One of the most fascinating I've ever read.
Yeah.
And he taught, and he's with heaven and hell. The guy has so much courage to go through that because it wasn't all mystical experiences and puppy dogs. He felt the pain of humanity and went to the hell realms. And, and I think even going into it, like he have a streak of these. And so going in, I think he knew he was going to go to these hell realms. And, so I really admire the man for his courage and, what he did to do that. So, so, I mean, in the vision of the book, not to give away the ending, but I'll give it away. Very optimistic because he says, there's ultimately going to be we're birthing into a higher, humanity's transforming and going through like a birth canal or turning into a butterfly, however we want to put it, but we're going to go through hell to get there. And so that's the kind of the rub. And, people might have different, you can kind of see it now. We're going through certain levels of hell, different changes, different.
Oh, it feels like we've been in hell realm for the past 5 years in a way,
at least 5 years.
Yeah.
Back further. But yeah, it's like baby coming through the birth canal. The hardest thing is, when you're starting to crown, it's like you're being squished. Like, Sandgroff is like the last stage before being birthed. It's can be suffocating and, I like the term in alchemy, solve et coagula. You ever heard that one?
Mm-mm.
Like solve is like, things have to dissolve or break apart and then come together in a higher form. So I hope that's what we're doing. I hope that's, the paradigm's kind of breaking to be replaced by a different paradigm that's more useful to our evolution.
Yeah.
Because right now it feels like it's 3 steps forward, 3 steps back, kind of 4 steps back. But the one thing that also gave me hope with that what the fuck one was, I think Bob Falconer mentioned it. Says we don't have to reach 51% of the population or this country or the planet to save this planet or to further this evolution. He's quoting Ian McGilchrist, I think. We only need to get to 3%. So that, first of all, that's
optimistic.
Much easier, much better, much optimistic. And he said that any one of us could be that last straw that kind of tips the balance. And so that's extremely optimistic. And so maybe you or I, we could, I don't know, maybe you're already enlightened. I don't know, but I don't claim that. But
is his argument just like getting to 3% and it having like ripple effects, or
well, kind of like the 100th monkey thing, I guess. But think about it historically, like back in the time of Buddha, was it 500 years BC or so? Had Buddha, Lao Tzu, So you can probably count on one hand how many people were, that enlightened, I guess you could say. And that, who knows what percentage of the population it was, but when you think about, we're 8 billion now, right? So 3% is 240 million. Is that right?
I cannot do math in my head. Yeah.
I think it's right. Someone correct me. And that's a lot of people. So that, I think I'm off. Maybe it's 24 million, but I don't know. Whatever it is, it's doing whatever. It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see these kind of two things going on at the same time. You have Wetiko, the mind virus, kind of spreading, causing the destruction, greed. You saw all these viral Karen things. Just see people being possessed by this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have things like with the psychedelic movement, just these positive counter flows, which makes for an interesting container to contain these two forces. And it'll be interesting to see, can we get to that 3% to kind of dispel Wetiko and keep.
Can you dig into Wetiko a little bit more? I know you just kind of described it, but I'm sure maybe people listening might not know the extent of it.
It's a native term. I think it came from the Algonquin tribe, but it's kind of a native term. I think it's common across a lot of indigenous folks. They have different forms of it, but it's not accurate to call it like Satan or anything like that. It's more like, mind virus is a good example because it does spread to people. They call it like a counterfeit spirit. So it tricks you into thinking that you're it. So it kind of steals your identity and hijacks you. And it's feeds on negativity, and it kind of, it has no creativity of its own. So it kind of uses our force of creativity for its own purposes. And yeah, it feeds on negative emotions. So it's that's why I think it's important for people not to sink into fear and despair so much, because then you're kind of in its realm. Even though, I don't know about you, but when I used to have a bad habit of doom scrolling, and I would just get in this quicksand of despair. I could easily do that now. Just, I don't want to go the other extreme in Pollyanna and just hide my neck in the sand or head in the sand.
Yeah, you need a balance, right? We need to be aware of what's going on, and sometimes you do come across stuff that you normally wouldn't see in regular news things. And then when is it the point where you're getting so sucked in where you have to take a step back and be like, this is too much, right? It's having an impact on me.
Yeah, I like the Goldilocks analogy of three bears, not too hot, not too cold, and this porridge is just right. So kind of finding that sweet spot where you can be apprised of what's going on the planet and all around you, and not get stuck in that fear and despair mode, which is so easy to do,
Yeah, it's what is that movie, Never Ending Story, the pit of despair, where they get sucked into the quicksand and the mud and nothing. Yeah. I need to revisit that movie.
Yeah, I remember I forget the horse's name, but that was a very touching scene.
Yeah.
So what else so Wetiko? I can send you. Paul Levy wrote this. It's called a manual for exorcising Wetiko, but it's actually only like a page and a quarter, so it's not really. And I keep saying this, but maybe I'm going to do it. I'm going to print it out and put it on my wall, just so I recite it every day, because it's and it explains a lot of what Wetiko is and how to deal with it. Because it's not necessarily a bad or evil thing. Like he talked about, like the COVID virus, for example. To use an analogy, we through immunity and through when you talk about vaccines, because don't want to spark a hellstorm of stuff.
Hot topic.
Yeah. So it was eggshells I don't want to step on right now. I think I've lost some friends over talking about that. It's such a silly thing to lose friends over. So we're developing immunity, like it builds our immune system, eventually, even people, if you just get the COVID, get it, and it builds immunity. So it's kind of like you're transcending that. So In a similar way, we're here to transcend Wetiko in a way, to help transform ourselves and the planet. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's the way we deal with it. Like, are we become this prisoner? Are we going to let it hijack us? Are we going to, or are we going to? The first thing is differentiating, like kind of naming it. It's there, like you recognize it, and because he says it has its origin in our own psyche. So the best thing we can do, like kind of what Jung said about the shadow, the best thing we can do is to recognize and integrate our own shadow, so we don't project it onto the world.
Yeah.
And it's similar to Wetiko. In fact, Paul Levy loves Jung. He, in fact, talked a lot about Jung during this thing. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. Yes, I mean, he's written copious books on it. I think I have Dispelling Wetiko, and the others like Undreaming Wetiko, because he says we're in this collective dream right now, and we can change that dream from a nightmare to something better. And that, this is a nice dovetail into the DMT thing, because yeah, but before I leave Wetiko, let me see if there's anything else. Well, I highly recommend his books. So the last one he wrote, he brings in quantum physics, which, for people who don't know, it's like a lot different from classical physics, where we had this materialistic view of the universe as almost like bowling ball, or like pool balls. You can almost incredibly predictable, because it's all Newtonian physics, and you can predict things, and if we just had the right science, we knew enough data, we could predict everything, and everything would make sense. And quantum physics just put the kibosh on that. It's like there's probabilities. It's not even atoms, or just, it's not this concrete exact thing. It's patterns of possibility. And quantum physics shows that reality depends on how we look at it. The double slit thing.
Yeah.
When you look at it, it appears this way. When you don't look at it, it appears another way. So it's like, what are we in the Matrix? In some simulation or something? Or it raises a lot of questions. So he kind of puts that in the whole equation of dealing with Wetiko, which is pretty fascinating. That's his next iteration of looking at it and like, what can we do about this?
Yeah.
So dovetailing into the DMTX one. For those of you who don't know what that is, X stands for, symbolizes extended. So if anyone's ever smoked NN-DMT, you kind of know it's a relatively short experience, and it can be a wild ride, depending on how many puffs you take. Like if you take a breakthrough amount, it's kind of like a cannonball shot into the abyss, or I don't know how you describe it. It's
Cannonball sounds accurate. Roller coaster, getting shot out.
Yeah. So you spend half the time just kind of like, whoa, where the hell am I? What happened? And trying to kind of get your sea legs. And then by the time you get your sea legs and see these entities, like you're sucked back in, out of that experience. So I think it was Strassman and Gallimore were having a conversation about, like, wouldn't it be interesting if we could prolong this? Because, typical of this experience, as opposed to like 5-MeO, is that people go to different realms, meet a variety of entities, like insectoid, gesture, angels, and stuff like that. And so there's a couple of advantages of having more time. One is like exploring the landscape, and they're finding interesting things, like people describe the same building or the same entrance to pretty uncanny details. So that's kind of interesting, but what are you going to do with that? It's interesting, but how does that really affect our lives, or anything? So what's even more interesting and important, I think, and I think the panelists would agree, was the relationships we can build with the entities and what we can learn from them. Sky Weaver was patient 1 or 2. Patient 0 is number 1, so patient 2 was, I don't know, whatever. She was the second person to do it. So, and she came in with the intention of like just making the most out of the time. I think they start with like half hour, keep people in it for a half hour, and then work your way up. I think the most they've done so far is 5 hours, and they're
it's wild to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart, or for people who've never tried it. I wouldn't start out with DMTX. And you
No,
can
no, you definitely need to build your navigation skills
start
before you
out
do
in the
that.
shallow
Yeah,
end of the pool.
yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
don't dive off the high board. um, but they have protocols in place where like if something scary happens, like when the entities is not being nice to you, you can signal or and come out of it. And interestingly, I think I've done only 35 excursions, journeys into this, and no negative adverse events or
That's
no,
pretty amazing.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's reasons for that though, because they started out with just doing it with like their friends who are experienced psychonauts and have a lot of experience with NN. So they already have a lot of chops in how to deal with navigating these spaces.
Yeah.
And healthy too, like
Right.
no PTSD or depression or trauma that they might be sitting on or stuff like that. So I think they're taking this slow, and I think rightfully so, but kind of expanding out to other populations because I think there's huge potential for depression. There's huge potential for you name it. And just to go back to the entities part, Sky, when she went in, she wanted to maximize the time that she had and treat it with reverence. And so she went and the entity, she never got a clear view of it, but it was off to the side. And every time she looked, it would kind of recede. But she looked kind of like a cockroach, which is interesting, like an insectoid one.
Mm.
But she didn't feel creeped out about it. She didn't feel threatened at all. She felt it was benevolent. And so she developed, asked questions about it. And, I'm paraphrasing here, but the answer was so beautiful. It was like, what can we do as humans to safeguard all life on Earth, or something like that? And the answer the entity gave was, let me just back up a little bit. The entities itself, like they talk about more of a collective. Like the entities are more like a unified whole. They're more, I guess, aware of the interconnection or the oneness together than we are. And so the entity was talking about, you need to feel and build your connections. And a part of that, again, I'm paraphrasing, probably butchering it a little bit, but I'll try to get the essence of it. You need to find the quiet, still place inside of you and listen.
Mm.
If something is simple and Zen, I guess the right word, and it's beautiful. I thought it was just like, it's kind of like what Eckhart Tolle, the power of now, and just because some of my most powerful experiences, either like through meditation or certain medicines, has been not the fireworks and angels trumpeting. It's been just finding that stillness within the center of the cyclone, like
Yeah.
Don Lilly would call it. It's just, and you look in the world now, with turn on the news and you don't see a lot of that being modeled for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I forget if they mentioned it on that. But did everybody participating have an experience with entities, or
Yeah, I think so.
really?
Yeah. And one of the questions I asked was, I go, have you ever had, so just to get back on that. So the big value is like, go in and you can build a relationship with that entity or other entities too, but because there's like a trust issue and stuff. Like, I guess, it's like you're intruding on you pop in there, like I
They're like,
guess,
"What are you doing?"
surprises you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, how the hell did you get here?
I've had that experience before. They're like, "What are you doing here? How'd you get here?" I'm like,
Some of the dialogues are pretty funny.
"Oh,
But yeah, so they build a relationship, and if you go in there without hubris, you go in there with that attitude of listening and wanting to learn, that's they'll take that seriously and they'll teach you stuff, and you have these beautiful dialogues. They said, don't go in trying to have them solve a math equation they haven't been able to solve. Don't use them that way,
yeah,
because it could be like I think Gallimore, or I think, gave the analogy of like a spider has its own realm and own views of reality. Would you ask a spider to solve a math problem for you? No, probably
right,
not. They wouldn't even care, wouldn't even know how to do that. That doesn't make them, useless or not without their own threads of wisdom. So yeah, it's a huge benefit to doing that. So I asked the question about, well, have you ever had two people go in at the same time to see if you could meet in that space and describe things the same way exactly, and have a dialogue with the entities together? They said they hadn't tried that yet, mainly because they only had one apparatus. So it seemed to get
sense,
and Dan McQueen said if when they do that, they'll probably have four going in at the same time. I would love to be a volunteer for that, but I probably want to get in the shallow end of the pool first.
Yeah. What's your take on the whole entity thing? I know like some people believe they're like real entities. Some folks that are like in the neuroscience world, they think it's just like kind of noise in the brain. Yeah. Like when you were hearing like some of these stories, like what was going on inside of you? Like how were you kind of conceptualizing what people were talking about?
I tell you, I mean, when I went my first ayahuasca experience, I came in with a mostly psychological understanding and Jungian thing. So like the thing like everything is part of you, like you're projecting your shadow. It's all part of you. And but a couple of ayahuasca experiences, I've witnessed stuff that maybe put a little crack in that paradigm. Like the possibility of maybe entities are like outside of this person's psyche. Not just a projection of your shadow or good stuff, for angels. Maybe there are like sentient beings that exist, quote unquote, outside of you. I know there's no differentiation, but whatever, just for the sake of talking about it. So yeah, after seeing some people that looked like possession to me, maybe question that whole thing, and just err on the side of caution and being conservative about protection. Even if you think oh, entities are not real, just it doesn't hurt to sage the space. It doesn't hurt to do things to like just in case they're real, might as well put a protective bubble light around you, do all this other stuff, wear protective stones. If nothing else, it'll just give you like a placebo effect, sense of security, and maybe that'll help. I don't know. But I to answer your question, David Luke, do you know David Luke?
Yeah.
You had that whole beautiful summit or whatever.
DMT entity encounters or something along those lines.
Yeah. And even he doesn't have the hubris to say like, I don't know exactly what these are.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to have that sense of humility, and like we're learning. We have no idea, we have, just like science, science is not exactly, they can't tell you definitively anything. Well, I shouldn't go that far, but it gets more precision on something. And a lot of it's trial and error learning. It's like that guided missile. It's like course correction.
Yeah, and it's like a measurement thing too, right? It's like we can't like physically measure these things in a way, but like, is it valid if people are having the same experience? Like Strassman like started to bump up against that, right? Like the same archetypal beings kept coming through that research. And it's like, if there is like a consistent theme or archetype or entity, like, do we believe in that? Like, should that be valid of like what's going on here when somebody is having this experience? Like, just because we can't like pull it out of that realm and like touch it and measure it, like, does that mean that it's not valid? Or do we take this kind of mechanistic, Newtonian approach where it's just like, oh, well, this is just noise in the brain, right? The brain is kind of producing this. But it's like, I don't know. I've always been fascinated by like, well, if it is produced in the brain, like what in the brain is creating such a collective experience for folks that it's like,
great question. Yeah.
I
heard, I heard this probably 30 years ago about how they're trying to explain mystical experiences, like in some people with temporal lobe epilepsy. So talk about reductionists, it's like, no, it's not, God's not real. You didn't experience God. You had this tremor in your brain that caused it. So,
well, I did hear one scientist, I think it was Zeus, and maybe it was like in one of his presentations, but like when we're in that realm, it's like our predictability thing is trying to figure out what's going on. And like when we see certain patterns and certain spaces, it's like we orient towards faces.
Yeah.
And I've had that experience actually where I was looking at this photo. It was actually at Daniel McQueen's house.
Oh, nice.
And it was pretty wild. It was like a photo of the universe, some sort of photo from NASA, and it was like mirrored. And so it was the same photo mirrored like that. And I was sitting in front of it, and his roommate at the time or something, like whoever he was putting a bunch of music on and all these lights. And I started seeing a bunch of like entities in this thing. And so I started thinking like, yeah, what is this? Like, is my brain just like, seeing these patterns and automatically just creating these faces? So then I started thinking about psychedelics. I'm like, some of this pattern is in the psychedelic experience. And so when we are going in there, is that what's just happening? We're kind of like, the brain is just like trying to predict what's going on, and it's just like creating these visual faces. But
yeah, that's one valid hypothesis.
Yeah.
And I think another one is that and not to even poo-poo that is a valid hypothesis, and I think there are things that our brains are wired throughout our history of mankind to you can call it the collective unconscious or whatever. In fact, I remember, I think Jordan Peterson had Dennis McKenna on. They were talking about entities, and they were talking mainly in terms of collective unconscious, like the archetype of the gesture, the archetype of these different things, certainly probably exists in the unconscious, collective unconscious, however you want to define that. But that, that's another valid hypothesis. Another one is that these things are real. We only see a small percentage of the electromagnetic spectrum, and the vast majority we have no idea. I think I'd venture to say that's probably true of reality. There's realms that we don't perceive that might be there. It's hubris to think that we know everything or even close to anything. I think even Dennis McKenna, he stayed at my house one time, and he was asking my wife at the time when I was married, what have you learned from ayahuasca? What have you gotten out of it? And so we said, oh, we got this, that, all this positive stuff. And then my wife asked, what have you gotten out of it? And he might have told you the story, or you might have heard already, but he said, once in a while, grandmother will tell me, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
That was value for him. I love that. Just to, pop the ego a little bit and just be more open-minded and receptive to like being curious, Yeah. When you know everything, you're not curious, you just kind of ego inflated and, spouting what you think you know. So yeah, to question reality, you have an open mind, because these entities, who knows what they are, but I think it's like many things, like dreams or whatever. It's like, or past life regression. That may or may not be a past life, but if you get value out of it, if you learn from it, there's value there, So
yeah,
going to the DMT-X spaces, the messages they're getting are just they do seem like they're very wise. Not all of them, churches in there as well, and maybe malevolent ones that they've been able to avoid so far.
I think I heard in that panel discussion, somebody like made a comment that like maybe we're in DMT-X. Do you remember hearing something like that?
Oh, maybe we're all like in like in the Matrix, or in this shared vision or shared dream state, or it's that's been a big thing. I mean, even lately, I remember when I saw the Matrix for the first time, it's like that was such a kick-ass movie in so many ways. It's just the levels of reality that there might be a whole series of matrices or matrices that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's fun to entertain this stuff, right? Like it's because it makes things more curious. Like, I don't know if you've had any of those types of experiences with like entities or like these other worlds and stuff like that. And I certainly have, and like I don't have any sort of firm belief or conclusion around it, but I think if anything, it's made me just more curious. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
Like what is everything that we're experiencing? And to me, that's fascinating. I think that makes life more exciting to know
yeah,
that maybe there is something beyond this.
yeah. It's the
Yeah,
mystery of life that makes it
yeah,
so wonderful. And uh, I had a point, I forget what it was. Yeah, well, even in IFS, they have the eight C's. To know when you're in self.
yeah,
For those of you who don't know IFS, it's a multiplicity of mind model where we're comprised of parts. I won't go into that, but anyone, most people can kind of resonate with that. Like they know when they feel like they're a little kid. Like making a mess in the kitchen or something,
yeah,
uh, or get triggered and there's a frightened part that comes up or whatever. So there's a multiplicity of mind, and sometimes those parts take over the bus, driving the bus. And the goal of IFS is to get self more involved, to get these parts unblended from self, and kind of have, everyone comes to therapy with a family feud going inside of them. And so the idea is to make peace with that family, get the, in regular family systems, talk about detriangulating relationships, breaking up coalitions that are inappropriate. And so doing that same thing with your inner family. And the self, one thing I love about IFS is that it really does evolve with different, Schwartz might be a little slower to accept things than Faulkner. I think Faulkner's more of a maverick sometimes.
yeah,
But now I heard that they're even like, they call it self with a capital S just to kind of keep it neutral. But they don't call it soul or anything. But I think now they're moving more towards transpersonal ways of explaining that central self, which I love because I love transpersonal psychology. I think it's a wonderful thing on the heels of humanistic psychology.
yep.
So yeah, I feel optimistic. I try to keep hope. Don't doom scroll and just,
Yeah, it's important to keep hope. I was just actually mentioning this on a podcast that we recorded the other day where like after I had my near death experience when I was 16, got a really bad snowboarding accident, and I had a bunch of optimism and hope because I had that mystical experience, but then slumped into a pretty heavy existential crisis and pretty nihilistic. Like I went back and looked at some stuff I was writing and just talking about like how meaningless everything is. Nothing's worth it. And, super dark night of the soul. Yeah. And like, reading some of that stuff, I'm like, man, it's really tough to read, of like just knowing like how dark place I was in. But I also, and I can sometimes get back into that state where it's like, but I have to like remind myself of the hope and optimism, because I think, as you're saying, like with Tico, right, it can just consume you. And it's like, you have to like really pull back and like see that, there's something else possibly unfolding here that's much more beautiful than the despair that we get caught in. And that is like, you can really get caught in it, and it makes life not worth, looking at. You're like, why do anything? And it's like,
I've been there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
times.
have. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have. And yeah, I think it's important to be honest about, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love the hero's journey model about, and I just had a conversation yesterday about the hero's journey. It's just such a beautiful lens to look through your own life. And in the dark night of soul, that could be that's the boss, the final boss. You're the dragon guarding the entrance or whatever to the treasure that you want to bring back. And I think more people are aware of that. Like, don't get discouraged if you hit these dark places or these obstacles. The obstacle is the way, as say in Stoicism. Just fight the big boss and win, and then come back home with the treasure.
Yeah.
And then wait for the next call.
Yeah. Maybe that's a nice way to start wrapping up here,
Okay.
answering the call. Stay optimistic. I noticed we're a little bit over time, but this has been a really fun and fascinating conversation. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your time, Brad, and for everybody else who's been tuning in here. Anything you want to close with? Any final thoughts that are kind of still stewing?
Well, like we were talking before we started recording on different directions that Lamps is going to, like after November 1st. I want to start tackling really big issues, controversial issues. And so going to bring people on that I'm going to probably get a lot of flack for, but important. People have been canceled in the psychedelic spaces, rightly or wrongly. I know some people that, I believe their version of it, at least I'll say. And there's just such a rush to demonize and villainize people. And you see it with just the outside world. As soon as there's a shooting or something, people want to, it was a tranny shooter, or is a far left, is Antifa, before any facts come in. And I think we see that in psychedelic spaces, and it's just disturbing. And there's sometimes you'll see a path to redemption, sometimes not, oftentimes not. Someone gets demonized, villainized, attacked, and then it's like a scarlet letter, it kind of ruins their life. So I want to start doing that. And just, I know we're over time, so I won't go into some of those stuff, but got big plans. I feel like I'm on the mission, I'm on the right path, and so it gives me encouragement to think big. Have fun with this incarnation, and
keep answering that call. Keep showing up.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah. And so for those that do want to check out this upcoming event, November 1st, you can check that out at lamps.com.org.
Lamps.org.
Yeah,
just remember 2 S's.
2 S's, yeah.
I think it was I forget why we had that other S. I think because Lamps itself was already taken. Someone's selling actual lamps. So for those of you local or willing to travel, come on down to LA on November 1st, because it's going to be even if you just want to come for the rave, or if you want to learn more about psychedelics, or if you want to have experiential experiences and meet great healers and have fascinating readings by human design, astrology, and so forth. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be. Do you ever read Illusions by Richard Bach?
No.
Oh, dude, you got to read that. It's short, quick. It's one of my favorite books. But I'll just say this about it. This guy's hanging around with the Messiah. He has a Messiah's handbook, and he's learning a lot from this guy. So he just asked me, "What's the meaning of life?" And the succinct answer was to learn and to have fun. So he goes, "Well, what about this?" And he noticed whenever he said something different, they fit in those two categories: learn, have fun. And that's always kind of been, I guess you could add, evolve also and grow is part of the meaning of life. But start with learning and having fun, and we're going to have both of those in spades on reverse.
Sounds beautiful. Check it out, folks. And Brad, thank you again for your time. I know, I'm bummed too. I wish I could stick around.
Yeah. So Joe can't make it either.
Maybe, I don't know. We can maybe convince him.
Are you both in Colorado?
Yeah, we're actually right next door to each other, which is kind of funny and ironic. Yeah. The universe had a funny way of working itself out. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Brad, and thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch everybody next time. So take care and have a good one.
All right. Namaste.